Now to a Middle East that is on the brink of a widening war. U.S. forces launched a wave of attacks on Iran overnight, a day after Iran's surprise attacks on U.S. forces in the region. So Iran says the attacks were deadly, killing at least 3 people on an island right there in that critical oil shipping route, the Strait of Hormuz. An Iranian state TV released video, it says, shows smoke rising after strikes on a city in southwestern Iran. Drone strikes sparked fires on 2 natural gas tankers in Egypt, of all places, in what appears to be the first time that Egypt has faced aggression for this war. So the origin of the strikes are not known at this hour. However, we do know Iranian-backed group has struck ships in the nearby Red Sea. So far, Iran denies responsibility. Let's talk live to CBS News national security analyst and host of the School of War podcast, Aaron Maclean. Aaron, Jordan drawn in, Saudi Arabia appears to be drawn in, so now word Egypt is also feeling the influence here. That begs the question, when we look at that map, if we are seeing a widening of this war.
Well, the Egyptian strike is really interesting, not only because these ships were hit in an Egyptian port, but in a Mediterranean port. And the message that sends is very clear. As you pointed out, this Iranian partner, the Houthis, who operate out of Yemen, have been hitting ships in the Red Sea, essentially making it difficult to get oil traffic out of the Red Sea to the south. Well, the only other way you can go is to the north, either through the Suez Canal or through pipelines up to that Egyptian Mediterranean coast. These strikes, whether they came from the Houthis, whether they came from Iraqi Iranian proxies or Iran itself, we don't know yet, they clearly demonstrate that Iran is willing to turn up the heat on that escape route for oil and energy products as well.
You know, the president has said over and over that U.S. strikes in Iran have decimated their military. But if we go to an all-out war, is Iran a bigger foe with deeper stockpiles than we know to prolong a fight?
Well, the question is, what does it mean when they prolong the fight? Does Iran have the kind of resources that they had back on February the 28th this year, or for that matter in the fall of 2023 when the broader conflict in the region began? No, they're much weakened militarily. But the question is, what do they need? Is a few ballistic missiles every night and a few drones every night enough to destabilize the region? What do they need to actually keep the Strait of Hormuz closed or to keep the Red Sea's energy traffic interdicted? The truth is, it may not be that much. So it can both be true that they've been militarily pretty degraded and also have enough to continue to cause problems if they so choose.
What about U.S. weapon stockpiles? What's the president saying about that?
Yeah, so this is a complicated issue. I think the bottom line is the reports indicate pretty significant shortages on both defensive weapons, these interceptors that stop Iranian ballistic missiles and drones from hitting their targets, and on the higher end offensive weapon systems, the so-called standoff weapons. These are our own cruise missiles, our own ballistic missiles. The cheaper offensive weapon systems, the laser-guided bombs, things like that, they appear to exist in pretty decent quantities. So I think what this means is it's not as though these shortages mean the United States couldn't escalate or continue to prosecute the war in coming weeks. The question is, how much risk do we assume by doing that? How much risk of casualties because of the shortage of interceptors, and how much risk to American obligations elsewhere in the world, given that every missile you fire in the Middle East is one that can't be fired, for example, in Western Asia, or for that matter, exists there to deter misbehavior in the Western Pacific.
All right, Aaron Maclean, thank you so much for talking to us. Always appreciate and enjoy it. Thank you.